And I think you're good.
We're live now?
I think so. Says live.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and people that are joining us online. I want to welcome you to our audit presentation. Today is July the 8th at 7:05 p.m. We'll now have a motion to call this meeting to order.
I'll motion.
Is there a seconder? Second by Sarah and Curtis, you're in favor. The motion is carried. It's our tradition to start our meeting with a prayer, and I'll start one in our language. Ganjoko sedawonsiyos gonigariwesa ne egadi ahodon gariwatego. Ongade wono hode. Agwego unska adeniwet noni ne watnigora. Dano yatiniwe rados ne agwego so asuk agwego skono agonhage. Agwego unska adeniwet noni ne watnigora. Dano de yatiniwe rados ne yadetni stunha. Giowanjadi gisego konkaikato. Gahuhages, Agosat Sonsera, na Aeoni Yohage, Aguego Unska Adeniwit Noni no Guatnigora, Dano de Atini Waradas ne Aguego Yokyo was a Giowanjade, Aguego Unska Adeniwit Noni no Guatnigora, Dano de Atini Waradas ne Aguego Yokyo was a Garunhyade, Dano Ono Gadi Aguego de Siwe no Rado, ne Songayat Diesel, Negasat Sonsera. Wano o so oyera eto neo dunhak neo wat negora.
No.
And it translates in English for people who don't speak our language. My people, listen for a short time. The business has now come to pass. Everyone, we will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to the people, so that peace will continue for all. Everyone will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to our Mother the Earth as she still goes along giving up her own strength for us to live good lives. Everyone will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to all things that support us on the earth. Everyone will bring our minds together as one and send our greetings to all things that support us in the sky and in the heavens. And now we send our love and our greetings to the Creator, Sunggoyat Dizo, the great strength of the natural world. Let this always continue in our minds. So that's the prayer now. So John, I will turn it over to you to present the audit to the community.
Thank you, Chief. For those of you who don't know me, my name's John Tour with Wilkinson and Company Chartered.
John, you'll have to speak into the mic, otherwise they won't be able to hear you.
But again, thank you, Chief. For those of you who don't know me, my name's John Tour with Wilkinson and Company. Thank you to Chief Counsel and Management for having me here this evening to present the audit for the March 31st, 2025 year end. So first off, again, ultimately these financial statements are management's responsibility. So really it is the responsibility of management and those charged with governance for the financial reporting of the band. As auditors, we present our independent auditor's report, and it is our opinion that these financial statements present fairly in all material respects the operations, changes in net assets, and financial position of the band at March 31st, 2025. Ultimately, we conduct our audit in accordance with Canadian Generally Accepted Auditing Standards. And as auditors, we do certain procedures, including identifying the risk of material misstatement. We obtain an understanding of internal control in order to design audit procedures. We evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used, and we conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of going concern accounting. And ultimately, these statements were approved by Chief and Counsel on May 28th, 2026. So now turning to the statement of financial position. So we see at the financial position at March 31st, 2025. So ultimately there is cash of just over 90,000 compared to 95,000 in the previous year. Marketable securities, which are really held in accordance with OFNLP agreements, are just under 36 million at the end of the year compared to 33 million in the previous year. Accounts receivable just over 35 million compared to 32 million in the previous year.
John, just so the community understands, the marketable security are the investments at B1 Nesbitt Burns.
Correct. And there is a number of other investments that the community does have, that the band does have in various projects, including Belleville Affordable Housing Limited Partnership. Loyalist Solar LP has an investment in Loyalist Solar LP, which is valued at just over 9.4 million from an asset basis. Investment in Ernestown Wind Park at just under 4 million. Investment in Belleville Affordable Housing LP at 1.8 million. There's certain funds on deposit with ISC at 665,000. And there is certain property held in trust regarding Culbertson Tract settlement of just over 5 million.
Okay. And so the community understands the investment at Belleville Affordable Housing. That's the 37-unit apartment building at One Front Street in Belleville.
Ultimately, there are liabilities that the band has. So there is basically community development funds under administration. There is Culbertson Tract settlement under administration. And ultimately, these are reported as liabilities because technically they have not been earned as income by the band. Really, they're held in trust until ultimately decisions are made how to use that money, whether it be for community infrastructure, etc. At year end, there is accounts payable and accrued liabilities of just under 18 million. There's, in terms of other large pieces, deferred revenue of just over 45 million. So within your large cash balance is funds that have been received for the use of future projects.
Or projects under construction.
Correct. Certain mortgage down payments. And then there are various loan payables under the Yaot Solar, Yaot Wind, which are tied in with the Loyalist Solar LP and Ernestown Wind Park pieces, as well as loans payable under the Capital Fund and Band Operations Fund. To ultimately get to net assets of just over 51 million at the end of the year compared to 38 million in the previous year. And then when we look at non-financial assets, typically, which when we look at tangible capital assets, so these are really your infrastructure for the community at just over 255 million compared to just over 202 million in the previous year.
So that's our buildings, our water treatment plant, our roads,
Equipment, etc.
vehicles.
And then you have certain prepaid and inventories to ultimately get to an accumulated surplus of just over 306 million at the end of the year. But again, noting that the majority of that is invested in community infrastructure.
Can you go up to the top again? I just would like to explain for community members the first item there. The Community Development Fund under administration, we have a committee called the Tyne Community Development Fund. And that is the money that's derived from the $3 royalty on cigarettes. And that money is held in trust to build some sort of recreational facility, which is being handled by the special committee of council to deal with that.
So next we'll turn to the State Consolidated Statement of Operations. So again, when we look at these amounts, just recognizing that this is not necessarily funds that were received during the year, but funds that are recognized in income. Because for example, if you received say 5 million, that was meant for a capital project that was not spent because the project is in process, that would be still within that deferred revenue number. So this is based on what's been recognized into revenue for the year. So again, when we look at this piece, Indigenous Services Canada, just over 52 million for the year. Health and Welfare at 4.3 million. Other contributions from the Government of Canada. So this could be other pieces, for example, that various other government funders that are federally regulated at 2.8 million. You have contributions from the province of Ontario at 22 million. AI at 1.9 million. CMHC, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, at just 6.7 million. And then looking at other large line items, you have interest revenue of 4.3 million, other program user fees, sales, insurance, and other at just under 18 million. OFNLP amounts, so this is both income earned from investments as well as contributions under the OFNLP agreement at 8.7 million. And then your other amounts from various investments, including the golf course partnership.
And so the interest revenue, does that include the the BMO Nesbitt Burns interest, because that gets reinvested?
Though that would be under the OFNLP fund.
Okay.
That would be separate.
And so these are interests off of our bank accounts then?
Correct. When we look at expenditures during the year, we look at expenditures directed at band operations, 41 million. Housing projects, 3.3 million. When we look under the OFNLP, 5.5 million. Amortization of your tangible capital assets. So this is writing down your tangible capital assets to sort of factor in the usage of the buildings, roads, etc. at just over 6.1 million. And then your various expenses under the Yoyote wind and solar agreements, as well as the expenses relating to the Mohawk.
Okay, and just so the community understands, the OT wind, down in Loyalist Township, we have 5 windmills, and that was a partnership with the revenue was paid by the ISO to generate that income. And so it's a ISO, it's a 20-year contract. And what year are we in now, John, with that ISO agreement? Do you recall?
No, but I would want to say it's probably close to 8 to 10. So
yeah. And then the wind power, we partnered with Blue Earth, and we have a windmill, we have a solar farm in Loyalist Township, which we are partnered with them with it as well. So that generates some income for the reserve. And it's for certain because it's a government contract to buy power that's generated from there.
So when we look at the annual surplus for the year, we see that it's just over 66 million. But again, recognizing that the revenues that are recognized, in addition to your regular expenses there, also contribute to your tangible capital assets that are purchased. And that's explained a little bit on the next page. So maybe just have you flip to the next page. So again, when we look at this piece, so your annual surplus of the 66 million, you have just under 59 million of that put into the purchase of tangible capital assets. Amortization, it comes back out of that. And when we look at that, so the annual surplus after factoring in those two items is just over 13 million. So that is your change in net assets for the year.
Now, our liquidity ratio, what would that be?
I'll be honest, I haven't calculated out what your liquidity ratio.
I know we're in a healthy financial position.
Yes, like when you look at the net assets at over 51 million, again, while some of those funds are community funds for use, it is in a good financial position where you do have your investments in addition to the tangible capital assets you've invested in.
Okay, now, John, with the money that's owed to us by the province of Ontario under the Turton Pen Agreement, we're still owed $1,125,000. Is that listed as account receivable, or where does that show up? Or is it a note to the financial statements?
That would be within the financial statements as a note until that agreement would be fully finalized.
Okay.
So we'll turn to the notes to the financial statements now. The statement of cash flows is really just a change in a reconciliation of cash on a year-over-year basis. Okay. But I will just go to the notes and highlight a couple of things. So if Cecil, if you want, so we'll go through the accounting policies, and we will turn to page 16 at the top.
I'm getting there.
All right. So first off, so when we look at the cash balance, so if anyone was looking at the cash balance on a standalone basis on the statement of financial position, really this gives you a little bit more detailed picture. So within that cash balance, we do see that externally restricted amounts, just over 2.1 million of that is externally restricted within the CMHC building replacement reserve. We see internally restricted amounts, which again, the Community Development Fund under administration at 3.3 million, as well as the Culbertson Tract Settlement Band Operations Fund at 28 million. And then we see the unrestricted amounts. So again, within the Band Operations Fund, Housing Fund, your OFNLP Fund, and your various other pieces. So to get to your total cash balance of just over 90 million. When we look at the marketable securities, so again, these are reflected at a market value basis within your statement financial position versus a cost basis. So when looking at this, we do see that your market value of your securities are just over 2.2 more than what they were originally purchased for, particularly that increase coming on the equity side. So it does indicate that the market value is more than what you would have originally purchased them for.
And if we just go back to the open LP amount, that amount includes one-time payments. It's the resulting from the settlement of lawsuits against the Ontario Lottery Gaming Corporation, because the province did not implement the agreement the way that they should have. And so usually the chiefs through the Ontario First Nations Limited Partnership had to take the government to court several times, the government of Ontario, and we won every time. And there were cash settlements. So the annual revenue stream, seasonal, what is it? A little about $4 or $5 million to $5 million a year now.
Yes, $5 million.
So that's what the normal revenue stream would be. That would be the 1.7% share of lottery gaming money that's generated from all sources. There are still some litigation issues that still have to be sorted out that are before the courts. So there'll be probably another one-time payment coming in, but the normal revenue stream from gambling operations is usually about 5 million is our share. 1.7% of the gaming revenue goes to the Ontario First Nations Limited Partnership, which is a committee of chiefs that have signed on to that agreement. I think there's 129 or 131 or something like that get revenue from that, and that's distributed by the Open LP to the First Nations, and our share is about 5 million a year, plus whatever these additional one-time payments or lost settlements are paid out to us.
So if you want to scroll down to the accounts receivable. So when we look at the accounts receivable, noting that of the accounts receivable that are reflected on the statement of financial position, a large majority of that does relate to amounts due from members, and in particular, housing loans that have been given out to members, which ultimately are paid back as normal mortgages in terms of those housing loans, and that is just over 24 million at the end of the current year. And then when we look at due from others, so we see that Government of Canada at 2.4 million, and then other accounts receivable net of other payables at 7.7 million. So moving along. So again, I'll just sort of go over sort of the high end of each of these pieces. So again, you have certain amounts that are due from, for example, the Belleville Affordable Housing LP, amounts due from Loyalist Solar LP, as well as your investment in Loyalist Solar LP. And these notes outline that they are on sort of a modified equity amount, in that the band receives certain distributions in relation to these investments during the year.
Okay, and just so community members understand, it's a partnership of 3 First Nations. It is Missinaba Cree, Garden River, Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte, and Richard Summers Corporation. And he is the developer and looked after all of the renovations to 1 Front Street Belleville to turn it into 37 apartment units, and I think there's 17 or 18 apartments are rented out to band members of the Mohawks of Lake Winnie.
It was 19, Chief.
19? Okay. So the majority of them are occupied by our members.
And in moving along on the financial statements. So you'll see there, when you look at sort of a couple of things that the band has, when we talk about the investment in Loyalist Solar, LP, Belleville Affordable Housing, the wind park, is as those aren't fully owned subsidiaries, as they are often partnerships with other, is that the information on here is for the financial information of those entities is reflected on here. But ultimately, for example, the assets and the revenues are outside of the band share, are not reflected within the financial statements as they are a separate entity. Whereas opposed, you would have the Mohawk Golf Course Partnership, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the band. There's no other separate partners. So the assets, the revenue, the expenses are all consolidated fully within these financial statements.
And so with the purchase of the golf course for our members, so you understand, when the golf course was purchased, we asked them to separate what the value of the land compared to the value of the assets that were on the buildings were on that land. And so the land was valued at $1.2 million, and I think it's 180 acres of land. And we are currently asking Indigenous Services Canada to reimburse us the 1.2 million for the purchase of the land because it's under the Surrender 24 claim, which Canada accepted for negotiation on December 5th last year. And so we're waiting for the government's response to that. It's outstanding, and so we expect to get a response from Canada on that soon. And we will then pay off the loan at the Bank of Montreal. So the loans that for the purchase of the land and the assets are with the Bank of Montreal, and that is paid by the band, but then reimbursed to the band from the revenues of the golf course. So there's really no band money going into it. It's the revenue that's earned off the operation of the golf course that's retiring that debt. And of course, the revenue will be even more once they no longer have a land mortgage to pay. Mm-hmm. And with the Loyalist Solar and Wind Power AT, that generates $50,000 a year for the wind project, and the solar, it's $250,000, so it's an income of $300,000 a year. The council has decided to put that money into the Economic Development Corporation, which will oversee all of these other investment projects.
So when we continue on, so that goes through the investments. So we'll turn to if you keep scrolling down. So the band does have funds on deposit with ISC.
And is there an amount for our capital and revenue account held in trust by Canada?
Yes, there's both the normal as well as the capital account.
And where's that reflected in the audit?
That is reflected within the funds on deposit with IFC on the statement of financial position.
Okay, thank you.
When we look at note 14, so again, this represents a breakdown of funds that have been deferred. So again, recognizing that certain funding has been received, but if the project is ongoing and not necessarily complete yet, and there's future expenditures to be incurred, is that those funds are deferred. So again, the total amount of deferred funds at the end of the year is just over 45 million. Turning to the next page. So note 15 outlines the various loans payable. So really when we look at this is the band does have notes payable in conjunction with primarily CMHC, so your housing projects. They previously had an administration building loan, really for this building. There is an existing fire hall loan, as well as the previous mentioned loans relating to the Mohawk Golf Course.
Okay, John, just wait. The fire hall, we did lobby Indigenous Services Canada and we got reimbursed the fire hall. But maybe that was paid off after March 31st, 2025. Would that be the what happened, Cecil?
Yes, Chief, so that will be reflected in the financials of March 2026 as paid.
Okay, so the money came in after the audit was completed. So that we do, right now, we do not have that loan has been paid off.
Full amount, Chief.
Pardon me?
Full amount.
Full amount. That loan was paid off. We got actually a little bit more because we had made payments on that from the open LP. And so they reimbursed us the capital cost of the fire hall. It was a little over $4 million. And that was based on our lobby efforts. And the other thing was the band office was paid off a year ago in April. That was funded from the open LP, and we've asked the department to reimburse us the cost of constructing these buildings as well, because the ISK programs and services are administered from here. So with the ISK formula, they gave you programs to administer, but where were you going to administer? We didn't have a proper building for office space to administer the programs. So we've made a case to them. They're looking at reimbursing us for that, the wellness, the health building, and the roads garage.
Total amount?
Yes.
What's the total amount?
Oh, I can't recall. I'd have to look. Kyle Weir sent it out. It's the historic cost of putting it. It was over $4 million for the wellness building. It was 4.5 million for here, and I think the road shed was a little over maybe 1.6 million, something like that. But that was built about 20 years ago.
Did they pay the accrued interest?
There's no interest, just the capital cost. On the Turton Penn highway agreement that where we're owed $1,125,000. The issue is that the Turton Penn lease was very badly managed by the Crown, and we have to have ministerial permits for the utilities that are in that highway corridor. That would be the Hydro, Bell, and Cogeco. And so we need permits for those utilities, but now they had to get a survey done because they don't know under what authority that infrastructure was put there. They don't even know where it is. They have to get a surveyor to come out to say, what are these poles in the highway corridor? Are they on other land that the band owns? Because they have to be in the corridor for the province to pay the use of our land for these utility companies. Then also, historically, the minister used to give those companies permit, like for $1 or something, like they could have it in perpetuity, or there are agreements like that. But there's the Southwind court case where they have to pay fair market value rent now. And so this business, it's like everything else, there has to be litigation to get the government to do what's fair with our people. And so, but that's being worked on by our council and our staff, and so we're making progress on that as well. And we will be asking for loss of use for Turton Penn as well. And we've conducted a study on loss of use for the 200 acres, and that has been filed with Canada.
So moving along within the loans. So again, as mentioned, there's the loans payable in relation to the golf course. We move on to the next page. We will see that those are the current repayment terms. And then your YAOT solar and your YAOT wind. So there is loans that have essentially funded the investment in those, but coming from the other partners. And those are secured by the partnership units.
So the revenue from the ISO pays down the capital debt of that infrastructure. Then there's some leftover annual, 50,000 from the wind project and 250,000 from the solar project that's paid to the Mohawks, the Bay of Quinte, but the council has directed that to go to the Economic Development Corporation.
So when we move along to note 19, which is your tangible capital assets. We see that at year end, land is just under 5 million. We see land improvements at just over 6.4, buildings at over 56 million at the end of the year in terms of original cost. And then other large pieces are your wastewater infrastructure at just over 80 million, as well as your roads infrastructure at just over 44 million. In addition to this, you'll see assets under construction. So again, your assets under construction could include buildings, could include wastewater, could include roads infrastructure, but until those projects are complete, they stay under the assets under construction. And then once they are completed, they're moved into the appropriate line item. And at that time, they start to be amortized.
So we have had a lot of capital projects in the last couple of years being constructed on the reserve.
And when we look at the accumulated amortization, we see that that's at 78 million. So again, as noted, really with recent projects upcoming for the 300, just over the 333 million, only 78,000 of that is recognized as being amortized at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm. Now, depreciation, how is there depreciation on the assets because everything wears out and it becomes less valuable? How does that get calculated on the net worth?
Yes, so for the most part, you don't depreciate land. However, building and building improvements would have various lower rates as they are a longer lived asset. Same with your roads infrastructure and your wastewater infrastructure. However, there would be higher rates for your vehicles, your machinery and equipment, which wears down faster.
Yeah, and the, for example, the apartment building off reserve, it appreciates in value.
Yes, but even though it might appreciate in value, it is still amortized for book value purposes. So when we look at notes 20, essentially through 24 and 25, all of these notes really relate to the surplus in the various amounts, which are reflected within the main consolidated statement of operations. So I won't go into those into major detail with the exception of when we look at the note 26, go to note 26. So this really, and if you scroll down a little bit more to the Mohawk Golf Course, please. So this scroll up. Yeah, so this represents the operations which are fully consolidated in the statement of financial position of the Mohawk Golf Course over the past year.
And part of that deficit there includes the depreciation of the asset.
Next.
Because they're cash positive, but if you calculate the depreciation as an expense, then it becomes a deficit.
So moving on, the organization does have certain funds on deposit with ISC, and that's outlined within here. Note 28, contingencies. So the biggest piece here is really in conjunction with the loans that the band does give out to community members. They do also, in addition to that, and these figures are not reflected within the numbers to the financial statements as they are just a contingency, but the band does guarantee loans, which at the end of the year were just over 19 million for housing purposes. So these are often with BMO housing loans, and the total housing loan program available is over 23 million, with a individual loan maximum of 400,000 at March 31st.
Okay, John, can you go back up to the funds on deposit with ISC?
Sure.
That one where it talks about the flower. So anyway, so council, new members of council understand in 1820 there was a Warren Noble lease, an illegal lease that was never approved by the membership, to lease land to him for a mill. It was went in default, and then it got assigned by the Crown in 1830 to a person named Turton Penn. Hence, it was called the Turton Penn lease for 200 acres to operate a mill. There was never, again, it was never approved by the band to have that a 999-year lease. The payment was 30 barrels of flour. It was in default of payment for several years. And so when they so the council declared at that time, I think it was early 1980s, I don't remember the exact date, but that they were in default of the lease, and that if the lease was ever valid, we took the position it was null and void ab initio from the beginning, and if it was ever valid, they are in default because the rent has been late. The last time they brought flour, they dumped it on the ground by the seed cleaning plant, bags of flour, and it was rat infested. And so Dr. Claire Brandt was on council, on Chief Earl Hill's council, and as well as the council of that time, Uncle Ted Green, and they refused the flour. The chief said, "You're supposed to pay us for flour, not meat." And so it was declared to be unfit for human consumption. So from that time, then several years went on after litigation had started. The Department of Indian Affairs thought they could correct the breach of the Crown by simply phoning Robin Hood Flour to calculate how much they were in default and sticking that money into our trust account. And we said, "Oh no, you've broken your lease as far as we're concerned. We're not accepting it. You're in default." And from that point on, the council then asked for the return of the property under the July 4th, 1991 memorandum of understanding that was signed with the Associate Minister Shirley Martin rather. And so that then the process began for Public Works and Government Services to buy out the leasehold improvements and return it to the control of the band in an environmentally safe condition. Otherwise, and there was a surrender vote in 1974, which was defeated. And it caused a lot of tension and division in the community. Some were pro-surrender and there were anti-surrender.
Thank you, Chief. So we will move on to note 29. So again, within the financial statements, there are certain amounts that would be reflected in both your cash balance as well as the liabilities, as they are funds under administration. So again, you have your community development fund, where you get both interest on the funds as well as cigarette quota, and then expenditures, which can be either given out to community members and or used for band purposes, such as Chief mentioned earlier. There was a recreation center. And then you also have the Culbertson Tract settlement under administration. So again, interest is earned on these funds, as well as you would have expenditures for these funds. And in addition to those amounts, there's property held in trust of certain acreage in relation to the partial Culbertson Tract settlement, as well as cash for additional purchase and remediation costs of that land. We turn to note 31. So again, with this outlines the total compensation to all key management figures, as well as honoraria to chief and councillors paid during the year. And then when we scroll down, you will see amounts owing from and to key management personnel. And often these amounts are really for any say councillors that have normal housing mortgages, just like other band members do with the band, and that's outlined within these financial statements. In the remaining notes are really standard accounting notes, which are there for accounting standard purposes, so they don't really provide a lot of additional value for this presentation. And that concludes my main presentation. If you look at the other pieces of the statements, there are individual band operations fund, housing fund statements, which do separate out the amounts that are within the overall consolidated financial piece, but just by the various funds that the band has. For example, they have a band operations fund, they have a housing fund, they have OFNLP funds, but those have all been presented within the main consolidated financial position, so.
And we have a number of bank accounts because some of our contribution agreements require there to be separate bank accounts. So we're full of, we have to be in compliant with all the terms and conditions of our contribution agreements. You can't have just ledger accounts, you have to have bank accounts.
And so now,
No,
both myself, Chief,
Cecil, maybe you could update the community on the interest we're earning on our bank accounts at Bank of Montreal.
Yeah, so as of, give me some second, I will open up my system and letting you know, while you can take other questions here.
so we'll
So I
open up.
guess it's now time for the community members to ask questions.
Angela, did we get any questions submitted online or to the email?
I don't have access to that email address. I don't know if Caesar does.
And I just checked before starting today at 7 p.m. There was no questions received on that email.
Can you
Thank you.
tell if we have people online, Cecil or Angela?
Yeah, I do.
Angela just checked. There's 8.
There's 8, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you to the 8 people who are taking an interest in your community. And we have some here in the council chambers. And so when I look back on history, I have to look to Esther because she certainly would remember all the Turton pen quarrels over the flower. Do you remember Esther?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I do remember.
Do you remember Curtis? Or are you too young for that?
Well, she's older than me.
Yeah.
Just by this much. Don't even.
I- Yes, I do, Chief. I do.
And I think the government was willing to give us, at that time with the Turton Pen, when I look back on it, they were willing to just give us the McTaggart-Latcher property, those 2 farms, and $400,000. And we would have lost our fishing grounds there by the river. And so now our claim is, we've submitted a claim for loss of use for $140 million. And I guess the thinking at the time was the Achievement Council said, well, just think with that money, you could buy yourself a Christmas turkey. I remember the Frida Baptiste saying, well, if I need a Christmas turkey, I'll go and ask for relief, welfare, instead of renting land for a Christmas turkey.
So we're asking for a loss of use is 140, but that's up to the government
Yeah,
to
make a
negotiate
counteroffer.
a price after that. So it's the 140 isn't secured by.
We're waiting for Canada's response, but that is what we've submitted based on the professional study that has been done. And so we have to fight for that money.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
In the report, it talked about,
Sorry, can you just introduce yourself on to
sorry.
people watching online?
my name is Kevin Kunkel. I'm the adult mental health worker at Mohawk Family Services and also a community member. My question is that in the report, it discussed several lawsuits pending against Mohawks of the Bay Clinic. Obviously, we don't know what the amount is, but if those lawsuits are upheld, where would that money come from?
It would have to,
Hypothetically,
it would have to
like,
come from band.
if it was
But they
$10
have-
million
But they have
in
no,
lawsuits,
but
where would MBQ come up with that money?
they would have to take it from the administration budget.
So it takes away from the community.
And the other thing is that those things have to still be decided by a court of competent jurisdiction, whether those cases have merit or not. And so just because there's lawsuits doesn't mean that the band agrees that there's grounds.
I think what you meant was like if it was upheld,
Yeah,
so like if it was actually went for anyone.
yeah, if it went to court and the people that sued MBQ got $10 million,
That 10
Where does
million,
that money come
that actual $10 million would come from the rest of the community. So that's the community dollars that these people would be being paid by, basically, the rest of the community is doing that. So whatever. I mean, if somebody has to, well, I guess then they have to. But what they're doing is taking the money away from the rest of the community members.
Well, maybe chief and council should maybe listen to people that actually put lawsuits
Okay.
in.
Okay, thanks.
We
It's
can't
not an
deal
argument.
with HR issues here at a public meeting.
We're
Our law-
talking finances,
like
right?
our lawyer is handling all those issues, and
My other question is, how much last year did we pay for lawyers' fees? Or is that accounted for?
is there a line in the
in
audit for that?
audit?
Professional fees?
It would be built into
Professional fees.
within the band operations fund. I don't have that exact figure.
We can get it for you if you wish.
Yes, I would like
Yeah, I have a
that.
question, maybe it goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
My name is Gayat Honde, Carrie Smart. I am also a employee of MBQ through the Dahadi Osadunji Head Start program, and I have a master's of education. I've been born and raised here. My question, though, actually, I have a question regarding something similar, I guess. If we have a question about where a certain expenses come from, so say if I ask for lawyer fees, who makes that known to us? Because as you're saying, it's built in, but if we want to specifically know the dollar amount that was spent because it is community dollars, who actually would provide that information to the community members asking that?
You would need to talk to Cecil, who is online, or someone else from the finance department who would
Or
be.
somebody in the administration should go to Angela. She would, but she would also ask council to release it, and they would probably act on legal advice.
Oh, okay. So my understanding then, maybe I'm incorrect, but I think maybe Sarah had said like it is community dollars, but it is under the assumption that council has to approve for that information to be shared with
Yeah,
community members.
the council has to approve the retaining of any lawyer for if somebody's trying to sue the band, the council has to approve. And usually the HR department and the chief administrative officer and our lawyer updates the council on a regular basis.
Yeah, because I noticed like when I watch the council meetings that you do say, you know, Hicks Morley was paid 3,000 whatever on an ongoing basis. But if somebody doesn't want to sit there and watch a whole year's worth of that and do the calculations, where would we just basically
don't-
ask for
we
what
can't-
was already
Because
paid?
it's before the courts, we can't disclose anything that relates to a personnel record. And obviously an HR dispute would be personnel and it's.
No, I'm
it's
just speaking
private.
generically, chief. I don't mean like, I don't need the details of any lawsuits or what is specifically being paid, like what for. I'm just asking for the amounts that you share during those council meetings. So it's obviously public knowledge, but without me having to go and do the calculations, where would I just get the overall amount for the year spent?
I would suggest that you send an email or to our chief administrative officer, and she will take that up, because I don't memorize all
So
the
if I,
numbers.
for whatever reason, say I can't contact Angela or, you know, whatever it might be, who would be the next person?
Well, she will direct it. She does review her emails, and she will direct it if you send her an email.
So there's nobody specifically though that would oversee it
Well,
other than
she'll
Angela?
probably work with Cecil, I would think, because
Oh,
Cecil's
Cecil,
our
okay.
finance officer.
Yeah,
So if
okay.
you're asking for details about financial information
Mm-hmm.
in our ledgers, then they would be the appropriate people to release that information.
Okay, but it is community knowledge though, so as long as it's not obviously in detail,
We can't tell you which case it relates to. We can tell you that this is how much.
how much was spent?
How much was spent on
Yeah.
HR issues. These would be employees trying to sue the band.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not asking for details about anything, I just used
But,
lawyer fees as the
but
example.
on the
but-
other side,
Yeah,
sometimes,
just the amounts, I mean, yeah,
so
sorry.
sometimes when the band has been taken to court, our lawyer, the council's also instructed our lawyers to ask if they're in the party that's taken us to court or in the wrong, to ask for damages. And we have got awards because some of those
Oh, yeah.
cases didn't have awards. So then those people become owing the band.
Oh, yeah, that's fair, I understand that for sure, yeah, that's a part of the ballgame, right?
Yeah.
The other question I just had, only reason why I asked that is because I did have a question, which I sent it to Shelley actually, which she responded one time, and then I had another additional question, which I never really got a follow up, which I'm sure she's busy, so nothing against Shelley. But I'm wondering, because as you said, like say lawyer fees or nutrition fees or whatever it might be, program to program, that's built into the whole fund. Like what type of audit, I guess, would actually specifically note dollar for dollar where everything is went? Is that a forensic audit?
Well, there isn't necessarily a forensic audit. Like within those overall figures, there is like almost 300 different programs that break out program by program, where the budget in terms of revenue as well as the expenses that are in each program.
Oh, okay.
So for example, you could have, say, 50,000 for this program from ISC, 100,000, 200,000, a million if this has capital projects within the consolidated statement of financial position.
Yeah.
All of those amounts are together. But there, if you actually look at what we call a lead sheet, which helps build up our financial statements, is almost 300 different programs which show all of those individual amounts. Now, from our audit perspective, because when we look at the band as a whole, when we talk about our audit, is we look at materiality. So we aren't looking at every single line item for a program with the $50,000 budget. We are looking at the ISC revenues as a whole. We're looking at the CMHC contributions as a whole. We're looking at testing on key audit items, which include sort of a lot of the payroll in terms of sort of reconciliations on that, but not on a line by line item. So if you are looking for, say, okay, can we get more detail on a budget for, say, an individual program?
Yeah.
That would be the same thing that Chief mentioned earlier, whether it be Angela and Cecil. It's like, okay, can we understand what the budget for this individual program looks like? And again, that's not my decision, but that would be their decision on what information to give out.
Yeah, so just generally speaking, in audits, so what would be the top audit that would basically be the most in-depth? Is that a forensic, or is there another term or another different type of audit?
If some, like a forensic audit is more like you're looking at, a lot of times forensic audits are like for fraud or whatever. It's not necessarily about a detail. You would want to be like, okay, you would ask for a detailed audit for a certain program for a certain reason, which would be a lower level of materiality on that specific program.
So if we were to request that, would it be council that would approve that, or would we go to ISC?
That would be probably chief and council. That I
Okay.
can't. That I
Maybe
can't.
you know, I
comment
don't
to,
know. I'm
so.
just, this is new to me, but does
Well,
anybody know the answer?
every organization budgets money for professional fees because oftentimes people will bring frivolous lawsuits against people for money. They think the band might be a cash cow or something like that. But anyhow, we have to act on legal advice because we are basically trustees. If there's merit to the case, the council. But if there's not merit, the council has actually directed to fight it. Some of these cases.
Yeah, they should.
But one thing I can tell you is that we have a high number of squabbles between staff that generate these lawsuits.
What do you mean? Sorry, Chief, can you clarify what you
Well,
mean?
just
by
that there's
I just don't
conflict between staff, and oftentimes they
Oh.
try to sue the band over didn't get what they wanted, and
Or
but,
like
but again,
policies
but the
and
chief
stuff
and
like
council don't direct or don't manage the staff. That is delegated by the council to the CAO to make decisions concerning staff, and then they update and inform the council.
I know we've talked about that, Chief, before, and this is a little bit off topic of the audit, but just to clarify my position on that is that if your CAO cannot make the decision, though, it ultimately is the judicial responsibility of the council to do so,
But
right?
as long, and the council has to support the CEO and the decisions they make, because that's their job. To go to the details, I know what they do is they do practice diligence. They do hire outside independent investigators to see if there's merit to the complaints that are brought to the attention of the administrator. And that's how any other organization would handle it. They would investigate grievances or complaints, and if they think there's merit, then they'll also inform the council that there is merit or there isn't.
Yeah. No, I understand. My question wasn't necessarily specifically about that. That was just the example, but I just wanted to know where the full details of anything, whether it's like Head Start program, because that's who I work for, just saying, if I wanted to know how much was spent on nutrition, where would I just get the specifics per program?
Well, what I would start was make an inquiry to the chief administrative officer, and then I'm sure that it would be public information at that level of deal. But usually the report goes in a high level, like how much money was spent on nutrition. It's just a global figure that it isn't how many gift certificates for food do they give to seniors. There's just a budget line for that and how much they spent of their budget.
But if
Like,
a forensic
we don't need
audit was
that
done, it would
level
actually
of
say
detail
specifically
at
where
council.
each dollar went.
Yeah, and I wouldn't necessarily say it'd be a forensic audit. You'd be requesting a detailed, okay, can we just see the budget and how much funds were spent on various areas for this individual program. And based on those numbers, it would be, okay, now have an understanding within this individual program, how much was, for example, spent on nutrition, how much was spent on salaries, how much was spent on allocated on these different areas. And then if you wanted to look at the detail of that, it would be not necessarily a forensic audit, it would be an audit of that individual program, which your testing threshold would be at a much lower level.
Okay, yeah. So just so I understand though, if I wanted a specific program, the first request goes to council. And
Well,
if they don't request it, it would go to
CEO.
ISD.
It doesn't start in the chief's office.
Oh,
not
I'm
the
sorry,
administrator.
yeah. So CAO, but if it can't, maybe chief and council.
Then if you're not,
ISD.
then you would ask, you might come to council, but you don't start off at the chief's office.
Oh,
'Cause
no,
I'm not,
I
I don't
I've never been at your
administer
office.
the day to day,
Thankfully.
but quite a few of them do.
Yeah, oh
And I
no,
don't
I've
handle-
never been,
And I
but,
don't handle HR issues. I don't deal with HR.
yeah, no, I understand.
We have staff and they have other professionals that are trained to deal with HR issues
Mm-hmm.
and they advise the council.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because we're a small community, so sometimes there's like, say, conflicts of interest or something where someone can't. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay.
But I was only using that as an
But
example.
if you want
but-
information, just send the CEO a letter and she'll talk to the staff and see what they can do.
Okay, I will do so. Yep, that sounds good. Thank you.
Barbara?
Yes, could I ask you, on page 23, I'm not quite clear on, you have the columns across the top there, funding received 2025, and revenue recognized. What is the difference between those two things?
So as a very sort of basic example, so say if you started off with 0 in the year, say if 0, and so you didn't have any under that deferred revenue category in 2024. So say if you received 10 million for, say, and I'll just use it as an example, a road project during the year.
Right.
Only that road project was only halfway through. So of that 10 million, you would recognize 5 million. That would be under the revenue recognized column. And the deferred amount would be 5 million for when that project was be completed next year.
So recognized
you-
just means spent
in a way, no, it could mean
or
yes.
allocated.
Correct. Yeah, because you may have got, hey, the government says we're going to give you this 10 million for this project. You get 10 million. You're halfway through that project at March 31st because it's an ongoing project. You recognize half of that, and half of that's deferred and recognized when those funds are expended next year or in future years, and that project is finished.
And John, what can happen is that sometimes the engineers haven't have provided the payment certificate that the inspection is completed, so you know you're going to owe that money. There's a bill coming in because that work was performed in that fiscal year. That becomes recognized revenue because the work was done, and you're going to get a bill for that work that was done in that year. You may not actually have the bill and spent the money because sometimes there's this raft of stuff that comes in toward the end of March when they have to close the books to prepare for the audit. So that happens.
I just wanted to clarify too, that we'll put this online for those who weren't able to join the meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I understand there's 8 people online.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like the audited statements that were shared tonight will be,
Yeah, they are on our website already.
They're already there.
Website already, yeah.
okay, they're already there. Thank you.
And I was just going to add, although it might not be my place, so I apologize to Chief and Council, but just in relation to your question, is in addition to banned funds, is there also would likely be insurance policies, liability policies that would cover off some of
Yeah.
those costs for lawsuits in place. That's sort of not my place, but since it wasn't brought up, a lot of times
Yeah.
there is that in place with certain thresholds.
And so
et cetera.
usually the lawyer advises the council whether or not they believe there's a case, and they appoint a lawyer to fight it if they don't think that it's valid. That's why we have insurance.
But the comment was made that that's the community money that will be used. But in fact, if the government or some other Ontario federal government have given you money for specific programs, You are prohibited from using that
No, but
or
we
pay a
get,
lawyer.
but we get money to administer the programs. That's, we get an administration budget too.
Okay, so you could use that, not program.
Yeah, and usually what they do, I think, is it 15% of administration fees that are off the programs? Angela, what's the formula?
10.
10%?
Right, Cecil, 10.
10% of the
It's 10% of all of the program funding.
goes toward the administration of those programs.
I just-
Kevin?
But you are right that when money is given through like for infrastructure, well, then that can't be used for anything but
No.
that infrastructure, as well as housing, the builds, new builds and stuff like that is for those projects specifically, yeah.
So would everything have an administration component?
There is a formula for the chief and council, which is, what's that amount? $100,000 a year that comes from the department for chief and council? Cecil?
Yes, if I'm just going through the audit 1 minute, I'm just looking at that. Give me 1 second.
Then there's,
155,
how much?
155,000.
So that's for the chief and council's honorariums and travel, whatever. And then there's another amount that's for the administration of the programs as staff, to hire staff to deliver those programs. That's another amount that comes under a formula from ISC. But what I can tell you is that the formula is seriously flawed. It's not been updated in years, and it doesn't reflect the market value of wages in this day and age. And so that's an issue that we have been lobbying the department on. Like, for example, we get $65,000 a year to administer the housing program. That includes 210 rentals, a number of mortgages, over 220 Bank of Montreal loan guarantee loans, plus about another 300 mortgages with the band, plus the rental of properties, plus the maintenance of all of the public properties like the cemeteries and parks. And so $65,000 a year doesn't cut it. So a lot of the open LP money has to top up the chronic underfunding of ISC on those programs. So we just had a call about that yesterday with the department about the insufficiency of the money to administer a volume of, and it particularly hits the large First Nations hard because we have more people and more numbers and more property. And so that's part of the, so they need to look at their large band funding formula. It doesn't work well. And so because we have other revenue that we're able to supplement this, but they have, these formulas have not been updated in years. And so they're lagging behind the times.
And isn't likely they're going to be at this point.
Well, they have in some areas, and so we're pushing them, and that's all we can do. And we're having some success.
I'm kind of confused on the whole, we were talking about the lawsuits and everything else, and, you know, you saying that chief and council aren't responsible, but.
No, I'm not saying we're not responsible. I'm not saying.
Isn't it, like, when somebody sues an individual who works at MBQ, the lawyer fights to have those people removed and MBQ named as the respondent. Why is MBQ doing that?
Okay, I'm not going to discuss like a matter that's before the courts, Kevin. It's inappropriate. And the council acts on legal advice, and we have to keep those matters private because they relate to personnel records.
I'm not talking about anyone, am I?
Well,
I mean,
you're
just a
asking-
question. If MBQ doesn't want to be responsible for
I didn't
employees'
say,
actions,
Okay,
then
I
why are
did-
you becoming the sole respondent of any lawsuit or any legal action?
because that's how it works in the legal system. When you sue the band, the chief does speak for the band based on the advice of our lawyer and the direction of our counsel and our staff.
People aren't suing the band, people are suing staff.
Actually, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm a little confused. I should say it doesn't make sense. But just going off what you already said is that you're not responsible for.
I didn't say we weren't responsible. What I was asked is where does the money come from to pay the lawsuits? I didn't say the band council wasn't responsible
I
ever.
just wanted to clarify what you said though, was that the council, no, this is totally generic, but I'm just reiterating or clarifying what you had said, was that you said when it's a employment matter, it goes to your CIO.
What I
But,
said-
so you don't dabble in that, but then what
No,
you're
what
saying
I,
is.
what I
you are
said,
the one
what I,
who
what I said
ultimately
is that when it
talks
comes
the
to
lawyer.
hiring, firing, discipline, that authority is delegated by the council to the chief administrative officer as part of running the band. They deal with staff. If there are lawsuits, I said the chief administrative officer and our lawyers and our HR department will
Yeah.
update the council.
Okay.
I didn't say, I never said the band wasn't,
No, I was just
council wasn't
clarifying
responsible.
that. Okay, thank you. I was just clarifying that. I just didn't understand the difference with the employment part and the lawsuit part, I guess. So thank you
Okay.
for clarifying that.
Barbara?
Yes, could I ask, on page 58, you have elementary, secondary instruction and liaison 1.5 million. It was my understanding the band does not administer the education program. That's still under federal control, under the regional office. So what would this money be?
Sorry, when you're looking at
It's
the
elementary,
individual
secondary-
band operations fund?
Yes, 2025 source of funds, page 58, halfway down the page, elementary, secondary, instruction and liaison, 1.5 million.
Yes, I can jump in and answer that question. So those are the instructional and the special funding that we receive to operate the federal school QMS. That's the regular funding of each year that we receive from ISRO.
So if there are capital repairs at the school, then usually our infrastructure department, Todd Cream's department handles the coordination of getting people to come in and fix whatever is broken down there. But there are some of the positions are band employees, but most of the teachers are all federal employees. The teachers' aides are band employees. And I think we have a couple of teachers that are band employees. Is that correct, Cecil? How many? Two. Two.
Not the exact answer to the statement, but yes, we have bank employees as well as the pay from federal directly.
Yeah. And the cleaner and stuff like they would be band employees.
That's what I was asking, was like the overview for each program, so that.
Plus, we get money for the band operated school. So we have a federally operated school, which is Quinny Mohawk School. Then we also have a band operated school, which has a separate funding agreement. And actually, we have lobbied the department for a person year to deal with that. That would be with all these extras, but really they don't give us any money for the work we do for the school. And right now, one of the projects that our staff are now coordinating will be is the peatland system has to replace, which deals with the sewage of the school. That's over $6.6 million to replace that. So that project has been tendered and awarded, and that project will go ahead. We'll take probably till the springtime to fix it. Yeah. The council made a decision today at today's council meeting to award the contract. There was only one bid for build all contractors.
Think you have a question?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Cam, go ahead.
Yeah.
Camden, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm Camden Miracle. I'm a community member here. I'm also with Bank of Montreal. I don't oversee this account, but with Bank of Montreal in the commercial banking space. With the development of the Economic Development Corporation, are the positions in these limited partnerships transferring over into that?
Yes.
Okay, so it won't just be net new, it'll be what's already developed.
The Economic Development Board will administer and oversee all of those investments and run those.
And will be structured as essentially a dividend payout to band operations.
Yeah, when
annually.
they generate revenue, the goal is that they'll pay by any profits to the band operations fund.
Okay, so they'll be maintained within the corporation
Yeah,
itself.
Cecil, how much money do we have now in the bank, the Holidays Blue Earth Bank account in Belleville?
Yes, I'm looking at that. I'll send you the latest as of my statement as of June.
Okay.
Give me 1 second, yeah. I'm opening up my data.
Well, she's opening up that at least at the end of March 31st, 2025, which is not quite current, but between the Yeo2 wind and Yeo2 solar, there was over 1.55 million in those two bank accounts.
So that goes into a separate bank account.
Yes, they both are separate.
Now, I can tell you, for people that are here and online, I've been the chief now for 33 years, going on to 34, and council for 12 years before that. When I started on the council, there was $700,000 deficit. Which Earl and I had to go to Peterborough to ask Ian House for an advance on the next year's funds just to pay our bills. Now you have millions of dollars invested in accounts, and the band is in a solid financial position. I'd like to keep it that way.
It, just for understanding that, we all know that the band gets revenue, it gets money through the government for different projects, whatever. The economic development is being set up for those, let's say the ODE, all of the money, basically the money making companies, because the band is actually like a non-profit organization. We cannot have those under the band. So that's why the economic development is being established so that they could be run through their own corporation, company, whatever. Yeah, it's just so that that it's not reflecting on the band office.
So where it's at now is the council still has to select the people that have the necessary skill and talent to sit on the economic development board, somebody that knows business and investments and banking, where there's opportunity, that can make that kind of analysis, what's a good investment, what isn't, and but they will report to the council because we have so many other things that we have to deal with.
Well, they'll be arm's length.
Yes.
They don't have a direct reporting relationship with us, but I mean, it's the hope that a DevCorp will be independent, that will generate income and revenue, and we'll have a community development fund. So all youth who want to play sports, who want to, do things in the arts, that we'll have the money there that we can support community members.
So what
in
I'll
doing that, and infrastructure.
And if I'm the chief, don't worry, I'll be looking at what money we're giving them and what the returns are on that money that's been spent. So we're getting good returns on our investments and our money, the bank accounts. What's the interest rate we're earning now in our bank accounts, Cecil?
Before that, we might just open the two documents here. The balances for the UAT 18 as of June 30th is 942,985.43 cents in UAT wind, and in UAT solar it is $1.6 million.
So anyway, the problem that we have is everybody wants to club everything to death. When you have new ideas, people fight against it and don't want progress. And we have to invest money because we know right now the government is talking about reducing Indigenous Services Canada budget by 2%. So we have to think of the future, and we have to start making money to cover what the community needs. And if we don't do that, we will have failed the community.
This is just a question, hopefully that connects, if I'm understanding correctly, but I'm wondering for band membership though, is there a cutoff line, or what is the requirements for people coming on to band membership? Because essentially, although we're gaining money places, the more people that we're taking on, essentially that's going to be money out the door for education, land, everything else. So basically, is there a plan to make sure that
Well,
that's sustainable?
right now, there's a political discussion going on concerning Bill S2. And Bill S2 is federal legislation to restore, I guess, to help remedy the injustice that has been done to Indigenous women and their offspring, because it's not been equal to the men. The men had the privilege of marrying anybody they liked with no consequence, but the women were simply booted out if they didn't marry another Indian. And so they're trying to correct because the federal legislation is subject to the charter, and there can't be discrimination based on gender. But the real question has to be, the land base has got to be expanded. Our infrastructure has to be expanded. Like there's going to be garbage. There's going to be water and sewer that needed. There's going to be land to build houses on. You're going to need subdivisions. We'll have to probably make our water treatment plant produce more water. And we're going to need a place to build houses to provide service to these people and employment. And so there's a whole big expense with having more membership. And right now the government has not committed money. Well, they want to correct the legislation and look good in the eyes of the world that they've ended the discrimination against it. They're piling like a lot of burden on the First Nations government. How are they going to fund these services? And actually, when there's not enough to go around, it places our staff, frontline workers, under a tremendous amount of stress. Because people chew at them, and then they come and chew at me and chew at the counselors and the administrator, and it creates a very stressful work environment to work here. And then when you're not paying adequate wages, then people just say, I don't need that. I'm not going to ruin my health working there. And people become abusive with each other, and then there's a lot of our people expect everything for nothing.
So maybe I can address your question a little bit too. So the federal government has come up with estimates between 3,500 and 5,000 people who would regain status under S2. I think that's a dangerously low estimate. But there are some communities right now who already have a membership code. So they may be a status member under ISK, but may not have a membership with any First Nation. So we were just at Chiefs of Ontario last week, 2 weeks ago, and there's a lot of discussion around creating membership codes for First Nations. Wouldn't mean that you're, self-governing or anything like that, but you can, any First Nation can create their own membership code and what that would look like. And of course, that would have to be involvement with the community. If that's something the community would want and to explore, then that's something that we can
And that's that's each individual
First Nation.
Yeah.
that does that.
So
we would have to ask the community what they would want.
So that did happen. We did ask the community what they wanted. When Bill C-31 came in, the band could either go along with the federal legislation and let the Native women and get their status back, or they could have passed a membership code that would have restricted that. And of course, it would have ended up in court challenges. And the other thing was, so when it did go to a vote in the community, and the majority of the people did not want to have the band its own membership code. Now, members, the band can make anybody a member of the band, but that doesn't mean that they're going to have Indian status. And the money is tied to status, not membership. And so right now what's happened is that there's a lot of people that are part of the families where there's mixed marriage, and there are people that live in that house that don't have a band number. We don't get any funding from anybody for the people that are non-members of the band, but there's water that's got to be produced for them. They drive on our roads. There's garbage that's got to be collected, and we have to educate their kids. And so so it just waters down the status portion into try to service a greater population. So I've always said that there should be a discussion with the province to see who's going to pay for the ones that are non-status. And we've always lobbied that. And so to me, that's the reality of it. And so that's why you'd have two classes of members, some that can have benefits and services and some that can't have any, because it's tied to status. Mm-hmm. And so membership and status has to be together. Otherwise, and that's what the federal government should be doing, whoever the band declares as a member will also have Indian status, so the money will come to deal with the needs that those people have. And what if their child needs special education and they're in our school? If you admit them, you've got to educate them. Where does the money come from? And if the band lets them be there, then it'll have to come from band funds.
So as of today, though, is our band taking on members that have no affiliation? I'm not talking Bill C-31 where, a family member moved off when they married someone.
The council.
Else, but are we taking members from BC that they don't have an affiliation there, but here?
The policy was there's a moratorium on that. There's a motion passed to put a moratorium on membership transfers, but you can have a woman who was a member here and maybe married somebody from Akwesasne or Oneida, Well, they want to come back here because they have bloodline relatives here. And so to me, the policy used to be if they have a familial connection to our community, that there's a grandparent or something, or they once were band members, they could come back. And so there's those kinds of situations. We have a situation like that that'll be coming before council.
You mean
But-
if they switch their membership, you mean?
Yeah, but maybe they were a member at one time, but then they married an Indian from another reserve, so they became a member of that reserve through their marriage. And
Okay.
now they want to bring their families, decide they'd like
Yeah.
to be members here, but they have family here. Their bloodline is from here.
Right.
So anyway, but the other downside is because of the high degree of intermarriage that's occurred with natives. I think there's only about, don't quote me on it, but I thought I read 47% of the members would be able to pass their status on to the next generation, because there's been too much intermarriage with non-natives that it's a cutoff. And so there's a lot of ways of looking at this whole thing. And so the Iroquois Caucus will be having a discussion about that on Monday. We'll be having a discussion, but I can tell you that concern is in the large First Nations communities. They don't have enough land base. There are reserves that don't even have an acre of land to build a house on there. And here, while we have 17 or 18,000 acres of land on the reserve, a lot of it is swampland. You can't build on swamps. And infrastructure projects are very costly.
Prices for land.
So there's a lot to think about, but I guess with Bill C 37, which is the water legislation, the government we argued, as a matter of fact, at the FN, I said there has to be money with the bill. You can't just put responsibility on the council and have them subject to criminal charges for not complying with, safe drinking water and not give them the money to fix it. So the federal government did commit $4.6 billion as part of Bill C 37 to deal with the water legislation, but it's insufficient. And so to me, there's this whole issue, and the first minister's meeting is coming up I think it's in October, where the premiers and the federal government and representatives from the organizations will be AFN and probably the Métis and the Inuit will all be part at that table to discuss the fiduciary obligations of both governments toward our people, because it's our land and our resources that generate the wealth and economic activity in this country. That all came from our people through those treaties. Without the land and those resources, they'd be mighty poor. And so people like Gord Downey, they've also helped generate corporations to motivate them to actually start thinking more positively about being a partner in remedying some of these injustices that so many of our generations have suffered over the years. And so I beat that drum too. Barbara?
On page 38, number 30, Culbertson Tract Settlement under administration. Down at the bottom of the page, it says less expenditures. It's 1.7 million. Now, since the disbursements didn't start until 2026, what does that encompass?
Under the Culbertson Tract Settlement under administration.
It says less expenditures,
Okay.
1.7.
In this settlement, we had to have a trustee. The trustee is the Bank of Montreal. They charge administration fees. So that was part of the agreement.
Yours.
But to answer your question, I do think
And
that
the lawyers too, that had to do craft the agreements. There's legal expenses, there's,
I do
there's-
believe
there's
that large amount though
administration.
does also relate to a land purchase.
yeah, well, there was $1.4 million for a land purchase, 20 acres of land, which we are asking candidates to reimburse us for.
Just like
Part of the Culbertson Tract.
yeah, just like the golf course, we're asking for the money back.
Yeah,
What was the size of that parcel, Chief?
I think it's 20 acres.
20 acres.
It's just south of where the Culbertson settlement is. It's in a lot of the land of the south of that.
So, and then also, just to answer, I think Esther, maybe you had said something about like the cost of like a CP now. I think that as a community, we should look at the Culbertson settlement as an opportunity for access to land for those who don't own CPs already, who want to come home and to
So-
build a home. So we're hoping that we'll be able to do a further community engagement, and maybe I would love to see a land use plan for that 300 acres, 320 acres, and we'll have the opportunity to plan it and ensure that people, even young people, older people who want a piece of land, who want to build a home, has access to
So the-
affordable.
Just to add on to that, Sarah, in the meeting today, we did discuss having, when is that community meeting?
July 30th.
July the 30th, and there's also going to be the housing and lands are going to be set up there for the community to come out and give their input on what we should be doing with both the Culbertson tract land and also Forester's Island. Both belong to us. So
Do you have 100% of Forester Island?
No, there's
Or
1
is
acre
still
of
that?
land. that
there is
belongs
1
to
acre,
Lester.
one little tiny part
yeah.
that was sold before Forester's
He wanted 300,000 for it. We said no.
for an
I know he
acre.
keeps trying to build something.
Yeah,
No,
well,
actually,
I see him
phoned
over
him.
there all the time.
I phoned him and he said.
But anyway,
they-
just for the
they're
community.
They're not building anything on there.
Oh, I
They did
know.
have a cottage on there, but it got burnt down.
Just for the community's sake, is that there is going to be a table set up for ideas from the community of what we could be doing with the Culbertson tract and also the Forester's Island. So we'd like to, hear from as many community members as possible so we can really get a good idea of what
Okay.
the community wants.
What about the settlement funds that were retained?
We haven't got a settlement on Forester's Island yet.
No,
That we've
with
not
the
filed a
culverts.
claim for that. So when it was back in 1998, when they were designating Dr. Rohideka a figure of national importance along with the Chapel Royal, the foresters decided they would gift that island, their land to the band. But in order to get it declared reserve status, you got to go through the addition to reserve policy. And so they require environmental assessments. So one phase of the environmental assessment is completed and the council has authorized the other part to go ahead.
But the ATR process can take up to 20 years.
Yeah, but anyhow, once the ATR process is done, because there's no money owed to anybody, and then we would look at the other thing is that there's the oral history was that it was part of the reserve. Another part of the history was that it was a gift personally to Captain John de Zoranto's island. So originally it was called Captain John's Island, and then it was when the foresters bought it, they started calling it Forester's Island. But there's a picture in that in the foyer there, what the buildings looked like that were on Forester's Island that belonged to Edith.
Camden's question was about the Culbertson settlement monies.
Who did?
Camden's question was about the settlement
Okay,
monies for
so the
Culbertson.
money is invested with the bank to see what the council did authorize $1,000 per band number, and so that I think we have 12,000 and plus band numbers. So we'll take at least $12 million out of if everybody applies. But I don't know how much has been paid out so far, Cecil, of that.
I don't think anything, we haven't processed any payments yet.
No, they have.
We have.
Yeah,
I know
so.
the applications came in.
The interest that we received on that is 2.8% because price is now 4.45 and total 5,000 over checks has been disbursed as of now.
Over 5,000 checks have been issued.
Yes.
And so they have until December of this year to apply.
December 16th.
They were 16th to apply for if you want distribution, well, then you have to apply for it.
But that wasn't a full amount distribution.
No.
There
No.
was paying funds, yeah.
And the reason why the council did that is there was about 60% wanted it all distributed and 40% didn't. They thought it should be invested to let grow for the benefit of the community as a whole. And so the council felt the compromise will give people $1,000 apiece till there's further discussion.
But did the retained amount, because it was a partial distribution, was the retained
It's just-
amount put into normal operations, or was it?
No,
held
it's
in-
in a trust account, it's drawing interest, it just grows.
And then we'll decide as a
For
community.
For the original amount, we knew how much interest was made. How much was that on until the distribution?
It was, I think, 31 million and something was the amount of the settlement claim, but that includes the money for the lawyer, the money for the trustee, the money for the survey work that had to be done. So there was a net amount of about 28 million.
And how much money though, how much interest was gained on the money sitting in the bank?
Cecil, you can answer that question. You have the access to that.
Yes, so the total interest earned for March 2025 was 1,2,790,389 dollars.
So it's growing.
Sorry, so I guess my question was that amount that is held in investments right now, is that part of a community fund that's been pooled, or is it held separately for decisioning?
It's held
later on?
it's held in a bank account.
Okay.
One of our demand's bank accounts. We said
And
set it aside, let it
what's
grow.
the process around the decisioning of the use of funds?
Because there was no plurality of votes. There were a lot of people were very adamant that that should not be distributed and just.
That, those funds that are still in the bank is community money. So like we said, we distributed the $1,000 per person because it was the community that wanted it. It wasn't council's decision. It was the community that wanted it.
Based on the survey.
Based on, so council did say, okay, then we're going to meet halfway. We will allot half of the money. The other half stays.
We didn't allow half. We allowed it $1,000.
$1,000. So it might not half might not go out if people don't apply for the money. Well, then that money stays in the bank, and it will always stay in the bank until the community decides what to do with it. And it won't be from chief and council, as this money distribution wasn't. It was through
Right, and how does that
the
decisioning
community's
come up
decision.
from, or how does that
The
decision
council
come up
hired Dan Brandt to conduct surveys in the community, and he did that, and that was the outcome. He presented the survey outcome to a general meeting, and then the council interpreted that to mean that we should distribute some of the money and keep most of it invested.
Yeah, I understand that, but is it just going to be held in investment in perpetuity, or
Well,
how
I
does
guess
it come
the
forward
council
from,
had.
community for
Well,
the,
I
for the use
think
of
because we
funds
have
later?
such a mixed opinion, I think there'd have to be some kind of plebiscite vote on how that money would be used. Because it can't be just whoever's got the loudest mouth at the room
course.
gets their way.
But the longer it stays in the bank, the more
Right.
interest it gains, obviously.
So
And
just a
obviously-
question. Can a parent apply for their child's? Maybe they
No.
want to invest it in their own education. or
No,
something?
no, the parent, the child's money is put away until they're
Until they
18.
turn 18.
Until they're
Then
turned
that
18,
child
it's
gets
in
money.
a trust account for them. So that's how that works, because there's legal issues concerning trusts and minors and all that kind of stuff. So anyhow, people can have their share, but Barbara?
Yeah, follow up to your question about the community survey and that we're going to put on tables and ask for a committee. I would remind you that part of Dan's survey or whatever it was a section on what to do with the land. That was one of the options. And they got a lot of input on that, how to develop it and, what it should look like and whether to give it lots and so on. That information from the community, it was only last year, 2024. It's sitting someplace, and as with most reports, probably has an inch or so of dust on it. So let's not do another survey worth thousands of dollars to get the same information again.
No, this is not going to cost anything. This is just going to be a table set up at the community center. We're not hiring anybody to do a survey. We just want input by people coming to the community center through this information and just writing down what they would like to see. So it's not costing
You will
anything,
never-
but there's more of an input to go along with past input. So
Exactly, but I hope you do make reference to that survey you did pay for.
Yeah,
Because-
that can be done. So anyway, with the survey that Dan Brandt did, there was different recommendations, council. Some wanted a subdivision, some of it wanted it held strictly for agriculture, and some wanted some form of industrial park, but no pot shops. That there was a high plurality, they didn't want another pot shop there.
A little bit, I think a little bit of everything for that particular land. So, sure, we want a lot of houses, okay? People need houses, but for those houses to work, we need the infrastructure. And the infrastructure put into place is gonna cost millions and millions. So where do we get the water? If we're gonna put up 500 houses, where's the water gonna come from?
I think
You know-
it comes back to how many band members are taking them. If we keep taking band members.
Okay, I can tell you,
We won't be sustainable.
there was close to 200 people on the wait list for a rental unit. But because some of those applications are like 5 or 6 years old, they purged and kept the most recent ones to cut down the list. So that means that there was at least that many didn't get a house on the reserve and went away frustrated or angry. Because they are from here and they can't live here because we don't have infrastructure. We don't have housing for them to live in.
And
so-
infrastructure, the water, the sewer, actually has to go through Deseronto because where it's located, and Deseronto is already at capacity. They can't do anymore.
We have a limited amount for expansion on our reserve, but again, there's more capacity on the east end than there is from our own water treatment plant. So usually when a municipality arrives at 80% of their usage of their capacity, they then start looking at recapitalization of their infrastructure to expand to produce more. And that all costs money. And usually the municipalities, the small municipality, Deseronto, has a hard time coming up with money for those kinds of projects. They're dependent on the province of Ontario to help them along. And so sometimes that their priorities are elsewhere. And so the band would almost have to build their own facility and buy some land and then build their own to service that.
How much was our how much was invested in our water treatment plant?
$30 million.
So for example, if we have to do another water treatment plant, this one here costs $30 million. Where are we going to get that kind of money to?
I can tell you
for
that
another?
there is money. What there is at ISK, we just had a discussion the other day with Nico Paul and Haram, the housing director. There isn't, the authorities for housing has not been renewed. That will expire next year. And so they're waiting for renewal, but the wastewater was renewed for another 3 years. And I think it's 349 million over the next 3 years. So we are looking at we had a discussion to see if they could pay for the water and sewer, because we have to build subdivisions. So they would pay for the water and sewer component of it. The band would have to buy the road. They may be able to contribute toward the electrification. But again, there's a very limited amount of money. So at the AFN, I've been asked to second Chief Lance Heyman's resolution that deals with the lack of infrastructure. And so they did ask, they thought the two chiefs we could do the best job of convincing the others to vote for it. But the infrastructure gap in First Nations, according to a joint study that was done by Indigenous Services Canada and the AFN, it was $349 billion needed to close the infrastructure gap in First Nations across Canada. And that has been recently updated, and it's now $379 billion. So that's been updated recently. So we'll get more information about that at the AFN meeting. But we have to argue for those funds, and I guess we did have some success. I was one of the chiefs that went to the Parliamentary Press Gallery at the AFN in December to argue for water, safe drinking water in First Nations, and the chief from Saskatchewan and the chief from, I think it was Shoal Lake. We went along with Grand Chief Linda DeBossi, who's the chair of our committee at the Ontario region about the situation in Ontario, and we did get approval for what we need. I think we were the only ones that did so far. But anyway, there's money there now, but they've also opened up like things like building Community Strong Fund to deal with water, wastewater. There's Build Canada Homes, but unless ISK can chip in, First Nations won't be able to access the bill payment homes unless they're going to fund 100% of it. But their money is, and the other thing that's happening for people that are that need social help to repair their houses, like the RAP program, that community is being phased out. And so then that's going to create another issue, because if people don't repair their houses, they're not going to last long. You can't let the roof leak and leak and leak and leak. You got to fix it. And there still is quite a few where people would need some form of social help to undertake that kind of work, or replace the septic if it fails, or the furnace. They're always looking for a grant to cover it. So that's what we have to contend with.
One last question. The audit is for March 31st, 2025. So this is a year and 4 months. Is that a normal kind of reporting time frame for audits?
No, it isn't. The band is behind in their audit, but they are catching up, hopefully, internally in order to get records to their auditors in order to prepare the audit. But they are
In a
slightly
more timely
behind.
fashion?
So the next year, if the audits are not in, the department is going to start enforcing their policy. If you're not in by July 31st, then they will start withholding funds.
Is there fines like that with, like, if we're not complying? Oh, there are fines.
Yeah, we have to,
Funds back to us.
So it's
Yeah, I
not,
just wasn't sure that if, like, as an organization.
like the problem is we had a lot of capital projects. We had understaffing in the finance area, and it still is understaffed. And so we do have to beef up that area so that they can keep up with the volume of work. As our community grows, and we're going to have a lot of projects, there's a lot of records, there's a lot of reporting, there's a lot of issues that they have to do. And sometimes the criteria is changing, sometimes the legislation is changing. They have to keep on top of all that to be compliant.
is documentation complete and in order already for fiscal 26?
I'm sorry, Camden?
Is documentation provided like completely to Wilkinson's for fiscal 26 at this point?
You work with
What
our
is, what
you work
is,
with
like,
our
the
accounting
status of the
staff.
progress for
Do you
that?
get the documentation you need, John?
Well, first off, so there is another auditor for the next year, and CISO would be able to speak if the internal documentation is complete.
But I guess your experience with this audit.
For this past audit, we received documentation starting for main audit in November and then going into February, March.
So it starts with the trial balance and the reconciliations and all that kind of stuff. That's where it starts. And then there's a lot of stuff that the auditors may question and of course then may audit, and they have to do all that.
There is also separate audits for OFNLP and CMHC, and that audit documentation we do get earlier as they are even more strict on their funding requirements. So that has traditionally been done within the reporting deadlines. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? But anyway, we have a good audit. We're in a strong financial position, and I guess that's something to be thankful for.
Were there
I
any
guess the
questions
question is how many
online,
people
Ann?
are.
I don't,
No.
Oh, you can't see? Okay.
But I can tell you there is a high volume of work to be done at the administrative level. And so you can burn people out with that too, and have a high turnover staff because people can only, I mean, there's only so many hours and minutes in the day. Like I know in order for me to keep up with my emails, I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I have the great honor still of being the lowest paid chief in the country. With no pension.
So that whole report though is online.
yeah, it's there now.
And do you publish the budget? And is there timelines
The
around
council
that?
hasn't yet, did we approve the budget, I think, this past,
I don't think I've ever seen a
April.
publicized.
see, so the budget, there should be no reason why that can't be posted.
Yeah, so it was due and I had to present it to today, but due to some medical emergency, I was not able to build the package, but in the next council meeting, the 26-27 budget is going to be presented.
Okay. The next council meeting.
The feds
Okay.
after fiscal.
So by and large, the budget will be, it's not just a big pot of money that you can say spend it here and spend it there. It's for programs and services, and there's criteria about what that money can be used for that we have to comply with.
And is it completed from the bottom up, like program level and then up, or is it completed top down?
It's completed from the staff. They bring the budget to council. They have a
Okay.
team of directors and managers that look at, put that budget together, what they foresee. But what I have asked the council to articulate where the frontline workers particularly, where they see a gap in service, because that affects what we lobby for. But in order for us to have an effective lobby, we have to have good data.
Absolutely.
We've talked about a possible organizational review as well, which I think we could probably benefit from, to identify
But-
the gaps and.
But I think, we have to recognize our staff. They carry high volumes of work and they work under a lot of stress. I mean, I've seen the way that some of the band members treat our staff when they come in for services, and it's not a good way to treat each other. Now, mind you, the majority are not like that, but there's some people, it's because they're frustrated. They have needs and their needs are not met.
But a great, one small tool that would facilitate better relations is to have a standard of service, which does not exist.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times have I heard, well, they never phone back, I don't get an answer to the email and so on. The standard of service is prevalent in all other kinds of government services and businesses and so on. I don't know why it doesn't exist. It should be possible to say, I will get back, put it on automatic, I will be back to you in 3 days or 2 days. I
Yeah.
think would cut down a great deal on the anger and frustration that people feel when you're not
Well,
responded to.
sometimes I have the same frustration with getting an answer in my council. I send emails and phone calls, and so if they don't answer me, I'll go to their house.
Standard service in the federal government, I don't.
But of course, people are so busy with so many things, like that's just part of what goes on, and there's always room to improve any organization, and we're working toward that. But my primary job is to do the lobby for resources for the community. That's where I focus my energy.
Yeah, and don't forget though, Chief, too, every single council member here works full time.
Yeah.
And we're doing this, right? So
Full-time.
you're
Just
calling.
making days.
Yeah, and the counselors have other jobs too, so I have to be patient, but sometimes there are urgent things that we have to deal with. And sometimes there's short deadlines on if you're going to apply for money, there's a short window of opportunity. And so if you don't have your act together, you're going to miss out. So the staff do a good job at, making sure that we don't miss out on funding. And sometimes we have to sign things off and phone them and say, can we send this in, and through it, just send an email saying you approve, then we'll put it on the next agenda so it gets incorporated in the minutes, so we don't lose out, because the deadlines are imposed by the government for funding applications. And sometimes they're very short windows of opportunity.
I'm wondering, because this type of audit doesn't necessarily go so in depth, it's kind of like the generic of different programs and whatever. If there was misappropriation of funds happening, like how would there be any indication of that? Like say if there's like internal transfers happening that shouldn't be, or I guess what I'm asking is like, how would someone know that?
We do certain tests of controls. Sometimes it's not like, okay, we're looking at, say, $100 transactions. Like ultimately that is fraud that goes beyond the audit to this detail, unless it was something that was very, very blatant. So
Maybe you could ask Cecil that question.
She didn't hear it, maybe.
So if there was those concerns, those would need to be brought up to chief and council and administration in terms of to look at that program in more detail if those concerns were in place.
So only if it was like a alarm bell rang where somebody kind of knew that was happening. But I'm saying, like, as a community member, how would that become how would that concern be voiced if it's kind of just staying so internal in terms of like, oh, this is how much this program spent, but we don't know where it was spent. where transfers came from and all that. Maybe Cecil would know. I don't know. Maybe that's a Cecil question. Like you said, but-
Cecil, can you offer any comments?
Yes, sure. So basically, being a CPA myself, I kind of administer the entire finance of the organization. Of course, there are individual departments, directors who is completely authorized, and also they have to do their due diligence to ensure that all the programs under them are properly supervised, which includes all the transfers. So finance will not do any entries in the book unless we get proper approval from those directors, from those supervisors and managers. We have all the paperwork for a transaction correction, for a line transfer, for a budget change, everything they have paperwork, and they have to be signed by the directors, by the managers, and then forwarded to finance to take any action. And there are limits of approval, so there is 2,500 that all the directors can do approval, and above 2,500 everything goes to the CEO and chief for the signing. So there are procedures and internal controls in place. Anything that is red flagged by the team that they have received a paperwork which is not signed, then I will be jumping in to get the proper approval and making sure that the transfers or anything are only done after we have appropriate approvals in place.
Okay, so if somebody did have a concern about misappropriation, would they direct it to you, Cecil, and then you would kind of investigate that and give a response?
Yes, certainly. So you can share me my email address, of course, finance director at mbq.kmt.org, and then you can kind of share me your concern. And individually, all programs are reviewed by me. We have over 155 total programs. So all the statements are reviewed by me, GLs are reviewed. So if there is any concern, I can give you the details. Yeah. After taking the, I will of course share to my supervisor and then review with her and then give you the response. Yeah.
And who is your supervisor, Cecil?
So I report to Angela, for that CEO.
Okay, thank you.
All the directors report to Angela.
Oh, okay.
This question has been brought to chief and council before about misappropriation of funds, and it was ignored by several people. Several employees brought it up from one of the agencies, and you ignored it. So
direct it to Cecil then.
and you've ignored it for probably a year or so, at least.
So then you can direct it to Cecil, right? And then she will look into anything, any concerns that you have.
She's one director and she's got 455 programs. So let me tell you, she's working her butt off.
Well, then
And
maybe
what
she
I
needs some help.
And she
If
can
a
give you
concern like that
every
was brought to my
single,
attention, I would be referring it back to
she
staff.
can give you every single
Ask for an
dollar that
explanation.
you need to know.
I have evidence that proves otherwise, so. I know there's misappropriation of funds within that organization, so I don't care how many people she organizes. She obviously needs help. If she's in charge of 455 people, one person doesn't make a team, right?
Oh, yeah. No,
Right?
no.
Exactly.
What-
So why is one person in charge of
Cecil's not the only one
400,
in
almost
finance.
500 people?
She's not the only one.
She oversees the accounting of the financial transactions is what she does. But the directors and the managers have signing authority to approve those things. So those things don't come to us for signature. There's delegated signing authority at the staff level to approve that. So it isn't the chief has to sign every purchase order. I mean, there's delegation of that function to the staff at certain different levels of staff. It's usually large purchases over a certain amount of money that might have to come to they have delegated spending amounts. And things over that then go up to a higher level. And some of it has to be approved by the council. Like to hire a lawyer to handle something, to hire the auditors, to hire the engineers to design capital projects.
The $88 million for the long-term care facility, that's all directed through council. Big projects, but the small stuff, that's,
But that doesn't mean that we once the project's been approved, that we do the day-to-day administration of it. Once the budgets are in place, the money's secured under financial agreements, the council then steps back and then the staff take over, the overseeing the project as it's built, working with the general contractor, the inspectors, the engineers, any issues out there that require a change in budget, they would probably bring to the council attention and give the council periodic updates where things are at. But the day-to-day management of it is not with the chief and council. Once we lobby for the money and money is put in place, then the council steps back and staff handle it.
But the allegation of misappropriation of funds, it's a serious allegation, and if it's true, it's criminal. So if you have what you think is proof, then that needs to be brought forward, and you need to bring it to the finance. And if that's the case and it's looked into, then the criminal charges will be laid. That's fraud.
But it's already been brought to Angela's attention, it's already been brought to your attention, and nobody's doing it. So, who's at fault?
If you have, you just heard that Cecil says if you have something to bring it to her, if you have.
Okay, now,
questions.
if I get a complaint like that, I will send it to all the members of council and the chief administrative officer and ask for an explanation. And sometimes they'll tell the council that there is no misappropriation of funds. That might be the perception of somebody, that doesn't make it true.
So one
Yeah,
way.
in respect, just wanted to share that I have not got any request of that. So if you have any questions, yeah, you can certainly email me and I will get you the response. Yeah, that.
And I won't ask for details here because it could implicate a staff member and that could create liability for the band. And so out of fairness, if you send an email, I will look into it again. But again, I have to go to the staff to ask because we don't do the day-to-day management or paying bills or whatever. It's delegated to the directors and there's their staff to order goods and services and to pay the bills.
I think that's where there's blurred lines with chief, like even as a community member, not just an employee, it's that, in one sense, you're saying that would be delegated to your CAO, but if.
Well, she-
I'm just saying theoretically,
Okay, but-
if your CAO was aware of it, if that was the case, and she's, or he, whoever it might be at the time, is not doing their, due diligence policy-wise or whatever, then the council would have to step in, right? So essentially, you are saying that, in one sense, you're saying that you would reprimand, but then in
No,
another
I didn't say I'd recommend. I said it was brought to my attention. I would send it to the CAO and ask for an explanation, or it was a particular director's program to ask for them some information to inform the council, because again, I don't know.
I know, when you said it's the opposite, that's why I wasn't sure, because it seems blurred, because it seems in some aspects, you will get involved, and in others you won't. I think that's where I'm just confused even as a community member.
But I can tell you, communities that have these kind of things, you might better kiss money goodbye in the future, because when that kind of thing goes on, the government just backs away from providing any new money to the community. So it actually hurts everybody.
I mean, as a community member, I mean, if people are misappropriating, if that were the case, I think that they should.
Yeah.
We can't expect money and just use it wherever, like, if there is a certain purpose for it, right? We all could agree to that.
Yeah. And just because somebody makes an allegation about something doesn't mean that because they've alleged something that it's true. And so there has to be due diligence, because if there is or there isn't, and usually there should be a response to the person that brought the allegation forward to say, from administration, to say, we've investigated your complaint and this is what our findings are, and we are not going to take any further action, and for the reason why.
And maybe that's why, as she had mentioned earlier, that there needs to be a standards, I can't remember the
So,
definition, but a policy saying that if people are not responding in a certain time limit, that they will be reprimanded, right?
But, they have workloads, so we have to be reasonable too, but they should get a response.
Yeah, in a reasonable time, I'm not saying 2 days even, but even a month, is plenty, I think, but I'm just saying, policy-wise, I think as a community member, I will say that I feel like there's a lot of policies that
Yeah,
definitely are needing to either be revised because they're old or put in place because new things come
Yeah.
up, right?
I think that's almost everywhere, Carrie.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So as of right now, we're working on there's not even a governance manual or governance policy. So we're working on that. It's 80 pages long. We've had multiple meetings. We've had 3-hour time slots, and we get through 9 pages. So it's happening, probably not as quickly as we hope, but
Well, that's good.
every day it's going through, yeah.
There's something.
But, you know, for transparency, I think we were one of the first councils anywhere to publish our minutes and to publish our audit and our honorariums.
Oh, when I tell our communities that we televise our meetings, they're like blown away.
Yeah, and,
Other communities
and
do
people
that.
can hook up if they were interested, what's being discussed at council and in the public portion of council, but if we're dealing with HR complaints or allegations against somebody, well, people are presumed innocent until they're found guilty. You can't just placate somebody at a public meeting, otherwise the band would have more lawsuits for libel and slander. So if you want to deplete the band's resources, that's the way to do it. Start accusing people of things that may not be true. So we have to make sure that what we investigate, there is solid proof that the allegation is founded and true. And oftentimes what we found is that there's personality conflicts going on between those people, and there's more to the story than what we're told. And because it's all dealing with personnel, it's confidential, can't say much about it. We know what's going on, but we're not going to, we have an obligation to
Yeah, along
protect the
with
privacy of anything that touches on personnel.
Along with the lawyers that have to be hired, another expense is the investigators. And the investigators per year is costing into the hundreds of thousands of dollars just to have investigators investigate.
Because when we hire
certain
staff,
whatever.
When
And
we
then
hire staff,
It's
we,
just wasting money in some instances.
When
Not
people-
all, but in some cases, it's just, once again, it's community dollars.
like when
that are going down.
you go and work for somebody, you're accountable to your boss. That's how it works. They direct you, you don't direct them. And then the other thing is that why you have to think about why you're here. And why you're here is to provide quality service to the people that are to benefit from the service we're providing for the community. So we are here for the community, not ourselves.
I like your comment about innocent until proven guilty, Chief,
Yeah.
but unfortunately, it doesn't happen to a lot of staff members lately.
Again, I don't,
And we can't discuss that, right?
we can't.
Well, that's,
Personnel.
I like your comment, though, about innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, so anyhow, I don't know, again, I don't deal with HR. Kevin, I don't have any training in HR, that's why we.
Oh, I was commenting on your comment
yeah, it's fine.
about innocent until proven guilty.
Is that, okay, this is an audit meeting, so let's not get into any other details. This meeting is for the audit. So let's stick with that, and I'm tired, and,
We've been here since Monday.
Okay, I just.
yeah, I still get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and spend all day here
Is there
after I
any
go to
more
work.
questions?
Well, then you should have thought that before you went to become a counselor. That you were gonna be.
Oh, give me that. Hey.
And you already lived in the community. How old are you?
60.
Right, so you've lived here for 60 years. You already.
No, I
know.
haven't. I'm sorry, I haven't.
Well, no, you've been a hockey player
Yeah.
all over the world. When you came back here, you wanted to be a counselor, you know just exactly what that takes.
I do now, I didn't then, but I do now. But you know what? I'm happy to be here, and many people have reached out to me. Many people have come to my house, and I've always invited them in, and I try to help everybody I can that comes to me, and even if it's not in my portfolio.
Well, then don't
So
complain.
I'm not complaining, I'm just telling you I'm
We're all
tired.
saying.
Okay, people are getting tired, so is there any more questions of the auditor? If not, then John, thank you for coming. So thank you.
Our community
Can I,
dollars
I just
are
have to,
paid for here.
I just have
But you're
to,
up on the up and up, and this is all legit and not a fake bunch of pieces of paper with a bunch of money on it that a lot of our community members are not going to be able to understand, including some of it myself, or if they want to go look, like, that's what I'm hoping for. As a community member, been here all my life, I'm just hoping that what you've got on that paper is good and honest, and there are no little spots in there where money has to be chucked away for people not to be able to know about or to see or whatever. That's all, I'm just hoping that this is all honest and on the table for everybody.
I think
Everybody out there in the
I think our
community?
whole community feels that, right? Because across Canada, you just see all these, like, you know, I'm not saying it's across here, but it's just, I think people want to ask questions to make sure everything across the board is just right, right? Because you hear about Frog Lake and everywhere else where it's, you know, been
Yeah.
surprised. I'm not even saying under your,
I would say that's an
under your
extreme,
reign.
that's an
I'm saying-
extreme example.
Yeah, I'm just saying like for years and years.
Yeah,
It's just
but I
something
mean, I don't believe that our accountant is willing to put up his
Yeah.
license and lose his
No.
license for
Absolutely, and I'm
dishonest.
not,
Yeah.
you know what?
The
I'm
other,
not-
the other thing
there
the
have
other
been
thing
so
I'd like
many-
to say is,
There are so many, things that have been corrupt here that people, become not,
like desensitized.
yeah, I think so, yeah. People that aren't, they don't come here, well, look at, how many people are here tonight?
Yeah.
Like, there's only a handful of people, because why? What is it? There's 8 people online. What is it that do our people not, you know, are they not interested in coming here to hear everything? Yeah,
I've said, Kester, a lot of the older people are not computer literate. Some of them don't even have computers, so, or a car to read the signs that are electronic. So it's okay for people with a cell phone or savvy with that, or have a computer. That is not the whole community.
no,
And so to me, the paper mail outs, I've always advocated that at least they'll read their mail.
absolutely.
No, what people will come out if somebody makes a wild allegation against somebody, and then they're going to come and watch the fireworks about somebody being put under the knife for the community. But you know what the consequences of that? Nobody will want to serve as your chief and counsel, and nobody will want to work here. So good luck finding somebody the next time.
All
And
I'm
you'll lose a
saying
lot
is
of good
that-
people. Because there's a limit to what people can put up with.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
When it starts to make people sick, and I see that in our staff because the way that people abuse our staff.
No.
I've seen that,
I
Esther.
totally disagree.
I had to go out there the other day to make sure that somebody that wasn't even a bandit wasn't going to beat on somebody that had mental health issues. We have these kinds of things, and the staff interact with that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to go out there and make sure that I had to intervene physically while I was there to protect that staff person. But there's all kinds of stuff that is not right in terms of the way people treat each other.
Absolutely.
You know, we're always saying we're practicing our traditional ways while abusing each other is not our traditional way.
Absolutely. It's-
And so when I see that, then I really question, what are you really all about?
Well, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need the council to stay back for 1 minute. Thank you, Cecil. Thank you, Angela.
Thanks, Hazel.
Nice to see you.
Thanks, people. For the great job that you do.
Okay, I'm ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Are you saying goodbye to the people online, or you want me to stop?
Yeah, we're done. Thank you for joining. Yeah, well,
Thank you very much. Yes.